And on that, share my screen. I'm not hearing anything, so I'm assuming there's no questions. What we're going to do today is discuss and begin the infectious disease project. I don't think I'm in Canvas. It will be helpful if I am. I can close that one. Let's see if I can get there from here. Nope. So let's go to Clark. Actually, I have it on my thumb drive. That'd probably be a better place. But let me show you where you can find the project. Boy, this is slow. Oh, I know why it's slow. It's because my computer is processing the lecture file before I can upload it. It has to make a MP4 file, and the Zoom session is not made in MP4. It has to be converted to one. All right, let's go. Infectious Disease Research Project. So if you click on this link, it'll bring you to this link, which will bring you to, oh, good. My Zoom session just finished. I'm just gonna leave that. I'll get to it later. Oh, I need to open it. So I can go there. I'm not seeing it. Maybe because I've got it in here. Yep. That's odd. I'm not sure why I have a topics yet, because nobody's requested a topic. Infectious disease grading. Nope, don't want that. I'll show that later, but let me see where I've got the file. Maybe I haven't moved it over from summer. Ah, I was looking at it all the time, just couldn't find it. Well, I'm not finding it, so I guess I will. Oh, here it is. So this is a 100-point lab project. This assignment will be worth 100 points. You can read about the introduction and the rationale. What you're going to do is you're going to request a topic from me, and it can be any infectious disease. It does need to be an infectious disease, and it has to be one where you're discussing a single species. Meaning, I want you to do something like strep throat caused by Streptococcus pyogenes. It is possible, like pneumonia, you can pick one organism that causes pneumonia, but this disease, pneumonia, can be caused by many different organisms, including there are bacterial species that can cause pneumonia, Streptococcus pneumonia, Klebsiella pneumonia, and there's another one I forgot. And then there's a viral agents that can cause pneumonia, and even fungal agents that can cause pneumonia. So if you pick something like pneumonia, I'll just get back to you and say, you got to pick a species. Okay. So I will be the gate checker, telling you what's allowed and what's not. It does have to be an infectious disease. It doesn't have to be one that is communicable, like Clostridium botulinum does not generally spread from patient to patient, but it is an infectious disease because if you were to eat canned food that was spoiled, you would get the infectious disease. Any question about any of that? So pick a disease, check with your instructor about whether it's okay, and I will require that everybody pick a different disease. Now I can break it up, like if with influenza, I can break it up into influenza A, influenza B, influenza C. With HIV causing AIDS, there's HIV-1 and HIV-2, both of which cause AIDS. With the human cold, no one's ever done the human cold, but there's many different species of viruses that cause the human cold. Any question about any of that? So you have to be the first person to ask for your topic. Otherwise, you have to request a second topic. And if you ask early, you only need to ask for one. But if you ask for a topic late, you should submit at least 2 topics because your first topic may be chosen already. And you have to check with me, get approval by me. I do not want students to work on the same topic. And I also want to make sure it's an infectious disease caused by one species of organism. Okay, any question about that? So you can email me your topic beginning today. You'll then do a search of the literature, books, magazine, news media, scientific journals, the internet, to learn about your assigned disease. Keep track of where you get your information because you do need to give references, both an in-text reference and a, what do they call the last one? The formal full references. And then write up your report. It must be typewritten. It must cover all the disease topics. The report must be typed single-spaced with 1-inch margins. I'm not going to look at that, but it has to be 12-point font. If you notice, I've got glasses. These are reading glasses. They're not, what do you call them, farsighted or nearsighted. I've got reading glasses because I can't read small font anymore. So make it 12-point font or else I'll have trouble reading it. The written report must include the following items. You must have a cover information. It should not be a cover page. Just put the title of your topic, the name of your disease, your name, the date, the course name. Okay, and you put that information on top of the first text page. Do not have a separate cover page. Okay, the text. You then must have text discussing your disease. I'll talk about the report content later, but the text will be worth 60 points, and that's including an additional 15 points for grammar, spelling, flow, and readability. In your text, you should use your own words wherever possible. When you must use direct quotes or use somebody else's words that are more than 3 words taken from one place or location or person, you put it in quotes and then say where you got it from. That is not plagiarizing. Otherwise, if you use 3 words from somebody else and you don't put it in quotes and say where you got it from, that is plagiarizing. And plagiarizing is very important. If you don't know, President Biden, when he first was running for the presidency, had to drop out of the race because he plagiarized someone when he was giving a speech. And then he didn't give references for where he got the information from. Another example of plagiarism is there was a sitting senator, I think he was from Nebraska, and somebody looked up his record and found that when he wrote his graduate school, I don't remember if it was a dissertation or what's the other one called? Something in graduate school, his thesis, he plagiarized someone and he had to resign his Senate seat. Okay, so plagiarism is something important in real life. It's especially important in college. If I find that you've been plagiarizing on this report, you'll get a 0 out of 100 points. Any question about that? So don't plagiarize, put it in quotes and say where you got it from. And another thing, I once had a student who she turned in a report where 50% of the report was in quotes and she said where she got it from. I don't want to see anything like that. Okay. If you have more than 10% of your paper in quotes and where you got it from, you'll receive a penalty. All right. So I don't want to see a report, a paper with a whole lot of in quotes. Use your own thoughts and words. While you're quoting someone, or even when you're giving information that is not commonly known. Like, for example, I can tell you that COVID-19 has killed a lot of people in the United States, but I don't know the number. And if you ever give a number or you give some other specific data that is not commonly known, you should give an in-text citation from where you got that data. Okay, the in-text citations are worth 10 points. How you do an in-text citation is, let me just open up a new page. You have your facts, which are not commonly known, and then you go parentheses, give the author's last name, Smith, give the year, and then in the parentheses. If ever there's 2 authors, you do something like Smith and Jones, and then give the year. If ever there's more than 2 authors, you go Smith et al., period, and then give the year. Now, this is for the in-text citation, okay? Any question about that? Oh, come on. Which is in your text. At the end of your text, you then have the formal references or the full references, which normally people just say references. And then everyone that's in an in-text citation, you should give the full information, where you got the source from. So for Smith, you give the name of the article. Oops, excuse me, you go Smith AJ, meaning you give his full name or initials. The name of the article, we're going to do something like COVID-19 in America. I don't know what it would be, but you just go like that. And then you give this, excuse me, that should be the year next. I had it right in the first place. And then you give the location of the source, the location of the source. For a scientific publication or a journal, you would give the journal name, like American, I'm just going to go an easy one, Science. And then you give the journal volume number. And then the page number. So that's the source of a journal. If it's a web page for the source, you just give the web page. If it's a book, you give the name of the book, editor of book, the publisher of the book, the page number, and then the city of publication. Any question about any of these full references? And that's for Smith. Smith and Jones would be similar. Obviously, you just put both of them in. Oops, that's not right. Smith and Jones. We'll just go A. It should be lowercase. Okay. And then Smith et al. Would be, you put in all of the authors. And I'm not going to do that because that'd be too many. We'll go ahead and leave that for the second one. I guess I can do 3. You do not put in at all ever in the full references. There is an exception. And that is if there's 8 or more authors. If there's 8 or more, then you give the first 7. And I don't want to get into that. You give the first 7, you then go et al, and you don't have to list more than 7. But that's so rare, I don't think you'll come into it. Okay, any question about it? Any of this? All right, so the full references you give like that, you never use at all unless there's 8 or more authors. And then all of the full references, or I should say all of the in-text citations should be in the full references. The full references do not have to be in the in-text citations. Any question about any of that? All right, let's close this down. Come back to where I was. So the in-text citation is worth 10 points. You can use any common citation format, APA, MLA, a science citation. Just be consistent. Don't mix different formats in the same paper. That's the in-text citation. The full citation should be at the end of the paper. I'm not seeing where that is in here. I think it's worth 15 points. You should not use for a citation. Oh, this is telling you what you should use for citations. You should use anything that is scientifically appropriate and reputable, like a government entity, the USDA, FDA, CDC, a scientific journal, popular magazines that are known to be reliable, Scientific American, National Geographic, Time, books and textbooks, including your microbiology textbook, are acceptable as long as it's a textbook, meaning you can take a look and see if the book has citations. If it's been reviewed, then it can be used, and all scientific textbooks can be used. Newspapers of a credible source may be used. New York Times, not the National Enquirer. A variety of scientific reputable television shows. You should be suspicious or not use at all any source that is religiously, politically, or privately funded, either a publication or a website. They will have a personal viewpoint and they will be biased. You may use a college page if it's from a professor, but if it contains student work, do not use it. You should not use Wikipedia. You may look on Wikipedia to get ideas and where to find sources, but do not use Wikipedia as your reference. You can use Wikipedia to get started on the project and then use their references to support your statements. Okay, so Wikipedia should not be used because it can be changed at any time by any person. And you should check your information whenever you get it from the internet, because you can put up anything on the internet. All right, the full citation, called the literature citation page, is where you have the full citation. You must have at least 4 unique sources referenced in your report. I'm not seeing it here, but someplace I've got in there that it should be 4 peer-reviewed references. And generally, I can just look at the reference and determine whether it is peer-reviewed or not. Your literature citation page will be worth 15 points. When you're done with your report, submit it to the project page in Canvas, and I'll try and show you that. It'll be right here. You'll have a link for the infectious disease research project, and you'll have an upload link. Don't have that because I'm an instructor. I have the speed reader link. You won't have that link. Yours will be right here. Sometimes if it's not on the right, especially if this is truncated, it'll be down here. Okay. All right, let me see if there's anything else I need to talk about this project. Oh yeah, I need to tell you what to contain in the text. You should have subject headings in your paper so I know where each section begins and ends. If you don't have a subject heading, you'll get 2 points off for every subject heading that's missing. Causative agent. You can have an introduction, it's not required, but you should talk about the causative agent. What is causing the disease? If it's a bacterium, you should list what are the characteristics of the cell, what's its gram reaction, what's its cell shape, the cellular growth arrangement, and any metabolic capabilities that are unique to that bacterium. You will have different things if it's a virus and if it's a prion or a eukaryote. I'm not going to read all of it, but I'll mention if it's a eukaryote, you should state whether it's a fungus, an algae. I don't think there's any human diseases caused by an algae, but a protozoan or a platyhelminth, or a nematode, sorry. State whether it's multicellular or unicellular, and what is its life cycle. Malaria is one that students often use, which is a eukaryote. Talk about the history. How long have we known about this disease? This should be a separate subheading. How long have we known about disease? Historically, how was the disease treated? What is the history of vaccine development? If there is no vaccine for this disease, you should simply just state that. Okay? And then describe the changes in our knowledge and attitude towards this disease throughout history. Even in something that's very recent, we've changed in our knowledge and our attitudes toward the disease. Like nowadays in COVID-19, most people care less about it. They don't go to the stores anymore with a mask. They don't keep 6 feet away from other people. Okay. And our attitude has definitely changed about that. Our knowledge has changed too. And so you should discuss a little bit about that. If the disease is very old, our knowledge and attitudes have changed dramatically. All right, the next section should be epidemiology. You should describe the prevalence and transmission of this disease. If it's worldwide, just state that, like tuberculosis. It's a worldwide disease. It might be more common in certain locations than others. Like I do know, it's much more common in cities than it is in the rural areas. I've never heard anyone state that, but I know it's a fact. And it's also might be more common in certain nations than others, like third world countries. You should state where in the world it's present, how many people are currently infected, what's the rate of new infections, what are the rates of morbidity and mortality. If you can't find it for worldwide, just state it for the United States. Okay? What is the reservoir of the pathogen? If it's a human-only disease, just state that. If you can get it from cats or dogs, state that. Like I bet you didn't know, COVID-19 can actually infect both dogs and cats, and it's actually a fairly serious disease among cats. And then state the mode of transmission. Everybody knows that malaria is spread by the bites of mosquito. But many diseases people don't know, and you'll have to look that up if you don't know. Pathology. Describe the pathogenic effects on cells, tissues, and organ systems. What tissues, organs, cells does the pathogen affect? If you can't find it, and you can't see anyone talking about what tissues, organs, cells does the pathogen affect, just state that the tissues, organs, and cells affected are not known. Let me think about this. I can't think of one off the top of my head, but I know when HIV was first observed in the United States, people were not sure what tissues and organs it was affecting. With COVID-19, I think everybody knew immediately what tissues and organs it was affecting. Talk about what the time of the sequence of disease, like what's the length of incubation, the prodrome period, illness, decline, and convalescence. We'll talk about these when we're talking about viral diseases, but any disease, there's a time from when you first get infected to when you have signs or symptoms, and that we call the incubation period. When the person is first becoming ill and they are, the symptoms are very mild, we call that the prodrome period. Then there's the period of illness. If the patient gets better, it's when the disease is in decline. Like when a patient's fever breaks, the disease has left the illness period and entered the decline period. And then the convalescence period is the period where the person has the disease, but there's so few numbers that the patient has no signs or symptoms of disease. And we'll talk about that later. Response and treatment. Describe the activity of our immune system against the pathogen. Is the immune system cell-mediated? Is it humoral-mediated immunity, meaning antibodies? Is there innate immunity against the disease? Is there acquired immunity? For example, the reason why children and young adults are so good at fighting off COVID-19 is because they have a very good innate immunity, and COVID-19 is very sensitive to your innate immunity. An acquired immunity is one that the immune system has to learn to respond to. And that's the reason why we give vaccines, to make your immune system learn to respond to that disease. And then talk about how the disease is diagnosed, what types of medical treatments exist, describe the treatments and the progression of the disease. If there are antibiotic resistant strains, state that. Like, for example, with HIV, I know there are strains of HIV which resist at least some, if not all, of the antiviral drugs they treat HIV with. And everybody knows that there are bacteria which are resistant to different antibiotics. So talk a little bit about that. Describe the prophylactic measures that can be taken to limit the risk of infection. For example, in a tick-borne disease like, I'm losing it, Legionnaire's disease, there we go. You get that from the bite of a tick. You can use measures like wear long sleeves and long pants and socks, and that will prevent the bite of the tick. And then after you go through a tick-infested area, you check your body to see if there's any ticks on you. And then you remove the tick. So that's a prophylactic measure to prevent the limit the risk of getting the disease. And then lastly, talk about the socio-political and economic considerations. Display any historic or present-day socio-economic or political issues that either help or hinder us in limiting the spread of disease. You can talk about the cost of treatment, suggest policies and practices that can be employed to help with limiting the spread of disease. All right, what follows now is my grading criteria. You'll be graded 1 point for your cover information, 9 points for the causative agent, 10 points for the history of disease, 10 points for epidemiology, 10 points for pathology, 10 points for the response and treatment, 10 points for the socio-political and economic issues, 15 points for your quality of writing. If your grammar, spelling, punctuation, flow, and readability are good, you'll get 15 points. In-text citations. If you use them appropriately, any information that's not common knowledge, and the in-text citations are in the correct format, you'll get 10 points. For the full references, you'll get 15 points. If the references are in the correct format, they have the correct information in each reference, they match the in-text citations, meaning whenever you have an in-text citation, it should be found in the full references. It does not have to go the other way, meaning if you have something in the full references, there does not need to be an in-text citation for that full reference. There must be 4 reputable sources for the literature citation page. That's a total of 100 points. Any question about this project? All right, if you have any questions, go ahead and email them to me. I think we're done for the lab. Just let me make sure. We're not doing anything else. We're not doing anything else today, but do remember you have a quiz on Wednesday, a practice quiz. And then we'll have lab 2 on Thursday. All right, if there's no questions, I'm gonna log off. All right, bye.